The rope bit into her throat as the sheriff tightened the knot, rough hemp scratching her skin raw. Clara refused to flinch. Dust swirled in the hot wind, carrying the stink of sweat, horses, and gun oil from the crowd pressed close to the gallows. Their murmurs rose like the low growl of wolves circling a kill. Ethan stood at the front rail, hat brim shadowing his face. He had paid for the spot. Coin slid into a deputy's greedy palm for the privilege of watching her swing. That was the bargain. Come back, watch her die, and maybe bury the ghosts clawing at his chest. But when Clara lifted her head, eyes blazing despite the rope, his stomach turned. They were the same eyes he remembered in the desert night long ago, when she pressed a flask to his cracked lips, when she dragged him out of the sand, when her voice had whispered, "Don't quit on me." Any last words? The sheriff barked, spitting tobacco into the dust. Clara's cracked lips barely moved, but Ethan saw them form the words. "You know I'm innocent." His throat tightened. He wanted to look away, but couldn't. He could still taste that desert water, still remember the night she saved him. And now he was here, coin spent to watch her die. The sheriff raised his hand. The wooden lever creaked under his boot. The crowd leaned forward, hungry. Ethan's fingers twitched toward his boot, where steel waited, his knife, worn smooth by years of survival. He could already feel the weight of it in his palm. Walk away, he told himself. She's guilty. She betrayed you. Let her hang, but her eyes didn't look like betrayal. They looked like truth. The sheriff's arm dropped. The trapdoor groaned open. Clara's body fell, rope snapping taut. Ethan lunged. Steel flashed, glinting in the sun, carving through coarse fibers. Gasps ripped through the crowd as Clara crashed to the ground, coughing, clutching at her throat. Stop him. The sheriff roared, pistol yanked free. Bullets cracked. Splinters flew. Ethan hauled Clara up, dragging her into the dust. Her voice rasped in his ear, raw and broken. "Why did you—" "Shut up! Run!" The gunshot cracked like thunder. Dust sprayed at Ethan's boots as a bullet chewed into the boards beside him. The crowd screamed, scattering back, but the sheriff's men pushed forward, rifles raised. "Kill him! Kill them both!" The sheriff bellowed, rage shaking his voice. Ethan didn't hesitate. He shoved Clara toward the hitching posts, his hand firm on her arm. She stumbled, still coughing, the red mark of the rope livid around her throat. "Move," he snarled. "Why did you—" "Not now." He yanked her hard, pulling her through the panicked mob. Boots thudded, gunfire cracked, the smell of black powder sharp in the air. Clara's legs wavered, her strength nearly gone, but she ran because he dragged her. They rounded the water trough just as a deputy's rifle barked. The slug punched through the trough, spraying water in a silver arc. Horses shrieked, rearing against their reins. Ethan grabbed the nearest one, a dark bay, slashing its rope free with the same knife that had cut Clara's noose. With one rough motion, he shoved her into the saddle. She clung on, pale, breath ragged. "I can't," she rasped. "You will." He vaulted up behind her, spurring the horse hard. The animal screamed and bolted, hooves pounding against packed earth. Bullets chased them down the street. Windows shattered, signs splintered. Ethan ducked low over her back, arms tight around her to shield her body. He could feel her ribs heaving against him, every breath a struggle. The horse thundered past the last saloon, out toward the open desert. Sunlight seared, the horizon rippling with heat. Behind them, shouts rose, hooves pounding in pursuit. Clara twisted weakly in his grip, trying to look back. "They won't stop. You know that." "I don't care." His voice was low, grim. Silence stretched a heartbeat too long, broken only by the drumming of hooves. Then she whispered raw, "You should have let me hang." His jaw clenched. Not yet. The canyon ridge loomed ahead, jagged against the sky. He pulled the reins, searching for a trail. Behind them, riders closed the distance, 10, maybe more. The sheriff was leading the charge, his pistol raised, his hat whipping in the wind. Ethan knew the canyon was a trap, but the open desert was worse. He had seconds to choose. The horse skidded, hooves striking sparks off stone as Ethan yanked the reins. Clara's cry was ripped from her throat as the animal fought for balance. From above, rifles barked, the crack and echo rolling across the canyon walls. Shards of rock sprayed down around them. "Hold on!" Ethan growled, jerking the horse into a narrow cut in the cliffside. The animal leapt forward, stumbling into the shadow of the canyon. Bullets whined off stone. The sheriff's men were fanning out behind them, gunfire echoing like thunder in the gorge. The air stank of dust and burnt powder. Clara clung to the saddle horn, her fingers white. Her breath was ragged, every inhale scraping against her throat, but her eyes were fixed on Ethan. "You'll get us both killed." He didn't answer. He couldn't. He was already counting options, measuring angles, the way he'd done in 100 fights before. But this was different. This wasn't just his skin on the line. A bullet smacked into the canyon wall inches from Clara's head. She flinched, pressing closer against him. Ethan's hand gripped her waist, steadying her. The contact lingered a moment too long. "Trust me," he muttered. She laughed, bitter and hoarse. "Trust you? You came to watch me hang." Her words struck harder than the bullets. He bit back the retort rising in his chest. There was no time. The path narrowed to a jagged ledge, barely wide enough for the horse. Sunlight burned at their backs, the sheriff's men still closing in. Above, shadows shifted, riflemen moving to cut them off. Ethan's gut twisted. They couldn't outrun bullets. Not here. He swung down from the saddle, slapping the horse's flank. "Ride!" he barked, shoving Clara forward. Her eyes went wide. "What are you? Go!" The horse bolted along the ledge, carrying her out of range. Ethan spun, Colt drawn, firing up at the ridgeline. The crack of his revolver split the canyon. One rifleman toppled with a scream, but the others answered back in a hail of lead. Ethan dove behind a boulder, breath burning, heart pounding. He had bought Clara a few seconds, no more. The sheriff's voice carried down the gorge, hard and cold. "Bring him to me alive. The girl, too. She won't run far." The scream tore from Clara's throat as her horse stumbled, hooves sliding on loose shale. She clutched at the mane, but the animal pitched sideways, its weight carrying her toward the edge of the ledge. Ethan saw it all in a heartbeat. The flailing legs, the stone crumbling under them, her body tilting toward the abyss. "Clara!" He vaulted from behind the boulder, bullets sparking around him. His boots skidded on gravel as he lunged. His hand caught her arm just as the horse slipped away, shrieking into the canyon below. The jolt nearly dragged him down with her. His shoulders screamed, fingers digging into her sleeve. Clara dangled, hair whipping across her face, her nails clawing at stone. "Don't let go." Her voice cracked, a rasp torn raw by the rope still bruising her throat. "I said hold." His jaw clenched as he heaved. Blood roared in his ears. With a final grunt, he dragged her over the ledge, both collapsing in a heap on the rocky path. For a moment, neither moved. Only their breaths filled the silence, his harsh, hers ragged. Her body shook against him, fragile but alive. Then the sheriff's men rounded the bend. "There. End it!" Gunfire rattled, echoing through the gorge. Ethan dragged Clara upright, pressing her against the canyon wall. He fired back, each shot deliberate, driving the men to cover. "Why?" she whispered between coughs, eyes wild. "Why save me now?" He didn't look at her. Couldn't. "Because I owe you." Her gaze searched him, desperate, but he turned away, reloading with steady hands though his heart felt unsteady. Boots thundered closer. Dust choked the air. They were trapped between the ledge and the gunman, nowhere left to run. Clara pressed against the wall, her hand brushing his, unintentional, but it lingered. Her eyes shone with fear, but beneath it, something else. Trust, or maybe faith. Ethan swallowed hard, chambered his last round, and glanced up the canyon wall. A narrow fissure climbed toward sunlight, dangerous near impossible, but it was their only chance. "We climb," he muttered. Clara's voice shook. "And if we fall?" He met her gaze at last. "Then we fall together." The click of the rifle hammer froze Ethan mid-breath. He turned his head slowly, staring down the barrel leveled at his back. The gunman's grin was all rot and malice. "Sheriff wants you alive," the man drawled. "But the girl, she don't need breathing." Clara's eyes widened. She pressed against the canyon wall, fingers tightening on the loose stones. Ethan moved before the gunman could. He twisted, knife flashing in his hand. Steel met flesh in a blur, the blade sinking deep into the man's side. The rifle cracked, deafening in the narrow gorge, the shot ricocheting harmlessly off stone. The man toppled with a strangled cry, crashing down the rocks into the shadows below. Ethan didn't wait. He grabbed Clara's hand and pulled her toward the fissure. Climb. Her throat still raw, she could barely breathe, but she climbed, fingers bleeding as they clawed at jagged stone. Ethan followed close, shoving her upward when her strength faltered. Bullets whined past, chipping sparks from the rock face. Dust stung their eyes, burned their lungs. At last they dragged themselves over the lip of the canyon, collapsing flat in the sand. The sky above was bleeding orange into purple. Night was coming fast. They staggered to their feet, limping across the desert floor. Behind them, the echoes of pursuit still carried, but the darkness grew thick and merciful. They found a hollow between rocks where they could breathe again. Clara sat with her back against the stone, pressing her palm to the bruised ring at her throat. Ethan crouched nearby, striking a match to the small bundle of sage he carried. Smoke curled up, sharp and bitter in the cooling air. "You should have let me go," she whispered. "I tried," he said, voice low. He didn't meet her eyes. Silence stretched between them. Coyotes cried in the distance, their howls sharp as knives in the night. Finally she spoke again, voice shaking. "They said I killed him. The rancher. But I didn't. You know I didn't." Ethan's jaw tightened. Memory burned in him. The rancher's death, the lies that spread, the way Clara vanished before he could ask the truth. He looked at her then, the firelight carving shadows across her face, and he wanted to believe. He almost did, but footsteps crunched in the sand, closer than they should be. The lantern's glow bobbed closer, shadows stretching long across the sand. Ethan pulled Clara down behind the rocks, his hand firm over hers to still her trembling. Her pulse hammered beneath his palm. "Stay quiet," he whispered. The crunch of boots drew nearer, slow, deliberate. Whoever it was, they weren't rushing. They were hunting. Ethan slid his revolver free, the cylinder heavy but nearly empty. He had only 2 bullets left. His knife gleamed faint in the lantern light. The figure stepped into view, broad hat, long coat, the star of a sheriff's badge catching the glow. It wasn't a deputy. It was him, Sheriff Maddox. "You've run far enough," Maddox called, his voice low, confident, echoing in the hush of the desert. "The girl comes with me." "You, Ethan." "Maybe I'll let live. For old time's sake." Clara stiffened. Her whisper cracked. "He killed the rancher. I saw him that night." Ethan's stomach knotted. The pieces slid into place. Why the town turned on her. Why the sheriff pushed so hard for the hanging. Maddox had spun the lie to bury his own sin. "You framed her," Ethan said, rising from cover. His revolver leveled steady despite the weight in his chest. "And you damn near convinced me." Maddox chuckled, stepping closer, lantern swinging. "You never could tell truth from a pretty lie, boy. And you always had a soft spot for lost things. Like her." Clara moved behind Ethan, fingers clutching the back of his coat. She whispered, desperate, "Don't let him take me again." The sheriff's pistol gleamed as he drew it slow, savoring the moment. "Step aside, Ethan. She swings by my rope, or you die with her. Your choice." The silence that followed was thick, filled only by the hiss of the lantern flame and Clara's shallow breathing. Ethan's finger curled on the trigger. His whole life seemed to balance in that heartbeat. Every loss, every regret, every desert mile. He could let go, walk away, bury the past. Or he could end it here. He exhaled. "Then we end it." He fired. The shot rang hollow in the desert night, echoing across stone and sagebrush. Ethan's revolver clicked dry in his hand, useless now. Sheriff Maddox grinned through the smoke, pistol raised, lantern light carving deep shadows into the hard lines of his face. "Empty already," Maddox taunted. "Always quick to waste what little you had." Ethan's chest heaved. Clara clutched his coat, but her eyes never left the sheriff. Her voice rasped, raw but steady. "Tell him, Ethan. Tell him you know the truth now." Maddox's smile faltered, just a flicker. Ethan dropped the gun, letting it fall silent to the sand. He drew his knife instead, the same blade that had severed Clara's noose. Its edge caught the lantern glow, bright and sharp. "This ends tonight," Ethan said. Maddox's pistol snapped up. "You first." The crack split the air. Clara cried out, but Ethan had already thrown himself forward. The bullet tore fire through his side, but momentum carried him into Maddox. They crashed hard, lantern shattering, oil spilling flame across the sand. Shadows danced wild as they grappled. Maddox's strength was brutal, years of violence behind every strike. But Ethan's desperation cut deeper. The knife slashed once, twice, until Maddox's pistol clattered away. The sheriff snarled, hands at Ethan's throat. "You'll die for her," Ethan's vision blurred, lungs burning. He forced the blade upward with the last of his strength. Steel drove home beneath Maddox's ribs. The sheriff gasped, staggered, then crumpled to the fire-lit dust, eyes wide with disbelief. Silence fell but for Ethan's ragged breathing. Clara was there in an instant, kneeling, her hands pressing against the wound at his side. Blood soaked her palms. "Stay with me. Don't you dare leave me again." He tried to laugh, but it came as a cough. His gaze softened on her face, framed by smoke and firelight. "I couldn't watch you hang. Not you." Her tears fell onto his shirt. "Then live, please." For a moment he almost believed he could. But the desert had its price. His grip on her hand loosened, and his eyes slipped shut, the faintest smile still on his lips. Clara bowed her head, grief breaking from her chest. Yet as dawn's first light touched the horizon, she rose slowly, the knife still clutched in her hand. The man who saved her was gone, but his choice had cut deeper than any blade. She was free.